I have to say, I didn't like the look of the first Supergirl trailer. Bland, brownish, Guardians of the Galaxy type color palette. I mean, actually everything about the film looks kind of Guardians, to be honest, from watching that trailer. The fact that this is James Gunn's DC Universe means that similarity is hardly surprising. Now, just to clarify, the film is not directed by James Gunn, but it is produced by James Gunn and Peter Safran. The film is actually directed by Craig Gillespie. I'm not that pushed about seeing a jaded, drunken super party girl and the petty digs against Superman, like Crypto peeing on a newspaper photo of him. It's just needless. And she's lying in bed hungover. Why do I want to see this? Subsequent trailers also haven't convinced me. They haven't won me over yet. Now, to be fair, this is also partially because superhero movies are simply just tired at this stage. Kind of fed up with them, to be honest. There's little we haven't seen before. Now, last year's Superman wasn't a box office success. And this is a sequel to that movie. I expect this film to probably not perform as well as Superman, simply because Superman at least has stronger name recognition. It's a stronger brand than Supergirl. So I think this movie is likely going to resonate with less of the cinema-going audience. And it turns out this film has been going through several different versions with test audiences. And I don't think that that's a good sign. I don't think it's a good sign. So let's take a look now at this article from World of Real. I will include it linked below in the description box for you to check out. This article was written by Jordan Rumi. It says, Supergirl, over 8 test screenings so far, 3 different composers, multiple endings, and more Superman. 8 test screenings already. Oh boy. Supergirl has reportedly test screened at least 8 times. More than I can recall for any other studio film this decade. There have been 3 different endings shown, with the latest attached to last week's California screening. That cut, reportedly, runs around 1 hour and 50 minutes and includes additional Clark Kent Superman scenes. So I think it's likely they've been adding more Clark Kent Superman into the movie to try to help it out, probably in an effort to just boost interest. And we've seen Clark leaving her a video message in a recent trailer. You know, so they're obviously trying to leverage a more popular character there. Makes sense. It makes sense, but it might suggest that the original cut of Supergirl just wasn't working. The film has also gone through 3 composers, with Tom Hunkelborg no longer attached and Claudia Sarn taking over scoring duties just 3 months before the film's release. The musical carousel began in December 2025 when Raman Djawadi was originally announced. The article says, you want the truth? Reactions so far have been mixed, not disastrous, but not glowing either. Millie Alcock's performance as Kara, Supergirl, keeps being singled out as a major highlight. On the other hand, several sources mention that the action sequences don't quite land. Director Craig Gillespie doesn't seem to have a full grasp on them, and that the main villain, Krem, feels underwhelming. Reports from multiple screenings do indicate Jason Momoa's Lobo making a strong impression despite the limited screen time. So it sounds like they're trying multiple different cuts to see what works. And even with that said, reactions are mixed. So to me, this film sounds like it could be in trouble. That's a lot of revisions to go through. This film is due out in June of this year. So there is still time to fix things. Just not an awful lot of time. It says tonally the movie is said to be darker and more character-driven than traditional superhero fare, leaning heavily into Kara's emotional trauma and moral ambiguity rather than light-hearted heroics. Well, maybe I'm just burned out from all the emotional trauma character arcs on the first season of Star Trek Starfleet Academy, which I subjected myself to. Do we need another protagonist dealing with past emotional baggage? This has been a theme in a lot of Hollywood movies and franchises for some time now. And also moral ambiguity, moral grey areas. It kind of feels like that anti-hero trend that we started to see in the early 2000s, both in movies and on television. I much preferred when stories were simply good versus evil, and that was typically what worked so well about superhero movies. She's described as jaded and at times reckless. The use of music and needle drops has been described as very reminiscent of Guardians of the Galaxy. Yeah, so a lot of pop music in there, I'd imagine. We see that with the trailer again. I just don't think a Supergirl movie, which is a DC property, should feel at all like Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. But it kind of does. It kind of does. And moreover, I don't think that Kara really made a good first impression when she first appeared at the end of Superman. It wasn't exactly a very flattering introduction to her character, and she belittled Superman as if he needed any more ways to be outshone and undermined in that movie. Superman was already a bit of a damsel in that film on several occasions. So he'd been looking after her dog throughout the movie, and she comes in right at the end and she's drunk and she just disrespects him and walks off. And yeah, so that wasn't exactly the best first impression that her character could have made. And so yeah, not exactly looking forward to seeing her have her own movie. Additionally, the editing reportedly leans into a more episodic planet-hopping structure. It plays almost like a space western. Speaking of episodic, maybe this film would have worked better if they'd chopped it up into 4 or 5 TV episodes and just turned it into a miniseries for streaming. At least that way, people are more likely to watch it because they can just sit at home and see it on their couch. But I can't see this movie being a big draw for cinema goers if Superman, which is going to be the main centerpiece of this DC universe, right? If the Superman movie last year failed to entice enough people to pay and see it in the theater, hence the reason it was a box office underperformance, I just don't think it bodes well for this movie. To me, all this reworking of Supergirl, all these different test screenings and different versions and everything, it sounds like this film could have troubles. But there you go. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on this one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Computing Forever. Remember to hit the notification bell to be notified of future updates. Hit that like button. Share the video out there. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.